Hi there, and thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Today, we have a very special opportunity where Alex Ruger, our original science communicator here at the Institute, who wrote our tour program here at the Institute, is here visiting from Illinois. Right now, he is a research associate at the Institute, so he's still part of our internal community here. He's still sort of on staff and helps us out with a lot of science and different things. But today, he is going to give what may be his last tour ever to some people he's just passing through who asked for a tour. So I wanted to introduce him and to make sure you understand this is not a video of our museum, but a video of Alex and the tours that he has given and how cool they are and the things he tells people about our museum. So please still come to the museum. Alex probably won't be here, but you can think about the things he said when you're here.
Absolutely. Just stay tuned, folks, and we'll get the tour ready in just a moment. Here. I'm still a research associate of the Institute, and so they've asked me today to give a presentation to y'all. We also will be recording it for future tour guides and for our YouTube channel. The focus of the camera is going to be on me, so no worries. You guys don't have to worry about signing a waiver or letting us use your likeness or whatever. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and I ask that while we're going through the tour, just keep chatter down to a minimum. If you have some comments, that's fine. But let's just make sure we've got the volume clear for the audio. Does everyone register that? Yes. Good? Okay. So we will jump right in. So Black Hills Institute of Geological Research has been in operation for about 50 years now. Almost 51. In fact, over 51 now. And so it started out as a way for our founders, Pete Larson and Bob Farrar, to basically fuel their passion for paleontology and mineralogy and geology. They were collectors and students at the School of Mines, and they've since turned it into a business that lets them work with landowners and museums and universities all over the world, and it has allowed them to build this wonderful museum that you are in right now. We have about 1,300 original fossils in here, about 200 cast replicas, and somewhere between 500 and 600 rock and mineral specimens. So there's a lot packed in here. It's not as big as other museums you might have been to, but they have jam-packed it with natural world here for you to see. Now, we talk about different time periods in terms of the Earth's history. So one time period that a lot of you probably know from pop culture is Jurassic from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Now, exactly. So, the Jurassic was just one time period in the history of the planet when dinosaurs were around, and the time that dinosaurs were around was only one relatively small segment of the Earth's history. So typically it is considered rude to point, but I'm going to ask that y'all point with me wherever you want. Just extend your arm straight out, one finger stretched out. You can point wherever you want. Now we're going to pretend, for the sake of argument, that stretched across your arm is the history of the planet. So right here at the base of your shoulder, that is the beginning. That's 4.6 billion, with a B, years ago. The age of the dinosaurs in this time scheme, and we're exaggerating a little bit so you can tell, is right around here, 250 to 66 million years ago. So way into the Earth's history. All of human history would fit on the last part, the thinnest slice of the white part of your fingernail. So we are but a drop in the bucket. This is what paleontologists and geologists call deep time. We're dealing with scales of time that are almost incomprehensible. So to kind of put that in perspective, Stegosaurus right here, one of the more iconic dinosaurs. It's got plates, it's got spikes on its tail. It is from the Jurassic period, about 145 million years ago. T-Rex, everybody knows T-Rex, right? We've got two right here. Both are replicas. The Wonkel Rex, also called the Nation's Rex, and Stan, who is the second most complete Rex. They are from the Cretaceous. That's about 66 million years ago. Now, if you do the math, we are closer in time to T-Rex than T-Rex was to this dinosaur right here. So again, that's deep time, and that's something a lot of people struggle to wrap their brains around. Now, we are going to start way back, relatively recent though. sounds like it's far back in time. We're only going to start about 20,000 years ago. So, without looking at the label, some of you might have looked at it already.
So our heads go down.
What kind of critter is this?
Woolly mammoth.
It is a woolly mammoth. This is a baby found in Siberia, in Russia. So, frozen in the ice, there's still soft tissue around it. Now, this is, of course, is a replica. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to touch it like this. In fact, it would have to be in a climate-controlled environment. So, mammoths and mastodons, they are relatives of elephants. And so elephants used to have a global distribution. They used to be all around the world. Now, there's more than one kind of elephant around today. Anybody know what they are? Raise your hand if you think you know.
African and Indian.
African and Indian, or the Asian elephant, yeah. And now, mammoths here, you can read their scientific name. It's Mammuthus primigenius. So, just like how you guys have a first name and a last, a first name and a last name, all animals, every species, has a first name and a last name. This goes for plants and fungus and even microbes, bacteria. So, the first name here is Mammuthus primigenius. So, first name Mammuthus, last name primigenius. The first name here is what we call the genus. It's the general name. The species name is primigenius. It's the specific name. Now, unlike us, so what's your first name?
Bill.
Bill. Last name?
Wallace.
Wallace. So, Bill in the family Wallace. Your first name is specific to you, and your last name is your family name. It's more general. It's flipped with the scientific naming convention. We call it binomial. And binomial means, well, what do you think?
Two names.
Two names. You guys are binomial too, or trinomial if you have a middle name. So, Mammuthus primigenius. So there can be more than one species in the mammoth genus. So if we go from the woolly here to a Columbian mammoth. So you can inch forward a little bit here, folks. So this is Mammuthus columbi. So genus Mammuthus, mammoth, species Columbi, Columbian, and Columbian refers to being in America. So this was ubiquitous to North America, whereas the woolly mammoth was in North America and Siberia in Asia. And so these were more constrained geographically. They were also bigger, and they lived a little bit more south. So they probably weren't nearly as woolly as the woolly mammoth. These would have looked a little bit more like a modern-day elephant. Now, what is one thing that people learn about different kinds of animals to figure out how they eat? What's a very simple rule that we all learn? Teeth, right? So what kind of shapes do different animals have in their teeth that tell us how they ate, what they ate?
Sharp or flat?
Sharp or flat. Excellent. So, you can look here. What do their teeth look like? They're flat. So, mammoths were grazers. They like to eat grass. Now, in paleontology, we also have to distinguish between taphonomy and pathology, and we're going to break those terms down. So, are these teeth, do they look smooth, or do they look a little bit broken up to you? Can you tell from where you're standing? You can get a little bit closer if you like. They're a little bit more broken up, yeah. Have you been here before?
I've been to the mammoth site quite a few times.
Okay. So, mammoths, unlike you and me, they don't have access to dental care. Now, we get 2 sets of teeth in our life. Mammoths and elephants, they get about 6. They inch forward almost like a conveyor belt. The old ones pop out. So, those teeth are all broken up. Now, why do you think that is?
Rough grasses.
Rough grasses.
Lack of dental care.
Lack of dental care. So, we usually have good teeth up until a certain age. This guy was on his last set of teeth, and he was very, very old. Now, mammoths and elephants, they have to eat hundreds of pounds of vegetation a day to keep their furnace, that is their biology, going. And so, it's very likely that D here, because his teeth were all broken up, they weren't good at processing all of that food, it's very likely that D here starved to death. So that injury that happened during life, that is a pathology. So if someone says you're a pathological liar, right? Which I'm not, because I'm totally honest. I mean, you all believe me, right? So, the pathology, that's an injury, that's an infection, or a broken bone. Something that happens during life that is not the standard condition of the animal. It's not the healthy condition. Now, taphonomy, on the other hand, come over here, got a good example of that. So this is the Hill City mammoth tusk. So it was found over, I believe, by the trailer court behind the grocery store, a little bit behind there on a hillside. So this mammoth tusk was found in Hill City, this town that you are in. Now you can compare this mammoth tusk to D's tusk right here. So what differences do you see? And this is what scientists do. We exercise our powers of observation. So color, you see a difference in color. What else? Texture, what differences in texture do you see specifically?
This one is more smooth and that one is...
This one is rougher. Okay, so that is taphonomy. Taphonomy happens after an animal dies. And so this tusk was buried very quickly, whereas this tusk was exposed to more of the elements. Wind, water, erosion. Something was breaking it down, and that's why it has that rougher texture, because obviously elephants today, their tusks, if they have them, are very big and smooth. A little bit more like D's here. Now, animals were very big during the Ice Age. In fact, it's more accurate to say that animals today are much smaller. We live in an environment that is kind of depleted of its megafauna, and that's partially our fault. Now, D here is on the bigger end of how big elephants got, but they also got much, much smaller, and this is evolution and adaptation. So, this is an adult pygmy elephant right here, from the island of Sicily, or from the Isle of Sicily. So, or from Sicily, Italy. So this is the adult size, and so they lived on small little islands and archipelagos and peninsulas near the Mediterranean. And so an animal in a smaller environment will evolve to be smaller, whereas an animal with access to more resources and more space will evolve to be bigger. So elephants are a pretty obvious example of big and small, but there are other animals over here that went recently extinct. So for example, this is the arm of a giant ground sloth. Yeah, so sloths today, they're small, they live in trees, they slowly crawl around up there in the forest canopy. This guy was not living in any trees. Did have those big claws. So a much bigger animal occupied an entirely different ecological niche. Does anyone know what those words mean? Ecological niche.
Where he lived.
Close. How it lived. What role it filled in the ecosystem, in its habitat. Now this animal did not, well, it probably lived during the Ice Age, or at least critters like it. But the elephant bird recently went extinct, maybe as recently as the 1400s. Big bird, tiny wings. You can come up here and see these dinky little wings. They're not much bigger than a chicken wing. So drumsticks were big, wings small. Now I'm going to ask you all to filter back here. There's a tooth here that has a very interesting story. Now can anyone see this tooth that I'm pointing at right here? Megalodon. Yep, you got it. Now for those that don't know, Megalodon is what? A giant shark. Now, Megalodon literally means, well, we can break that down together. Mega, what do you think that means? Big. And don, orthodontist, teeth, means big teeth. Now, this tooth is sharp, and so flat teeth typically mean herbivores, and sharp teeth typically mean what? Carnivores. They eat meat, and it's no surprise that an animal that looked like a giant great white shark was also eating fish and whales even. In fact, Megalodon, we have bite traces of it on whales. This tooth has a really cool story around it. So, back in the 80s and early 90s, Black Hills Institute, in cooperation with Siebert and Sieber, who is one of our Swiss colleagues, they went and had exclusive permission to go and dig Peruvian fossils. Now, in the Atacama Desert, so this is a very desolate region that used to be underwater, so they found whole whale skeletons. And one day, our founder, Pete Larson, was out prospecting. He was in a Jeep. He was a passenger in the Jeep, actually. And he sees a glint on the road, and he tries to get his driver to stop. And the driver doesn't stop, and there's a big bump in the road. And Pete scrambles out. He gets him to stop, and he scrambles out, and he finds this tooth lying right there in the road. And this is actually the world record Megalodon tooth. You may find other people that claim they have bigger ones. Those are oftentimes composites, so 2 or more glued together. This one is very likely the biggest, at 7.5 inches long. And so the general rule of thumb is, for every inch of tooth, that's 10 feet of shark. So you can do the math, that's a 75-foot, potentially 75-foot long great white relative. Now you guys can filter back and check this out. And then we're going to move on to this case right over here. And I encourage you to look at that. Thus far, we have only discussed vertebrates. And vertebrates are animals that have a backbone. So there's a whole swath of critters that might be a little bit weirder, might be a little bit ickier to some of you. But these make up most of the species on Earth. They do today, and it was the same in the past. So, a lot of people are familiar with these. These are trilobites. Have you heard of these before? No? Well, they're a little bit like a cross between a horseshoe crab and a roly-poly. You know the roly-polies you find in your garden? Now, they are distantly related to both of those kinds of animals. They are their own unique kind of arthropod, an animal with a segmented exoskeleton. So they don't have internal bones like we do. They have an external hard shell that supports them as they move around. Trilobites are so named because they have, well, how many body sections do you think they have?
3.
3. That's what that prefix means. 3. Triathlon, tricycle. They have the head portion called the cephalon, the body portion called the thorax, and the butt, which is called the pygidium. Say pygidium with me. Pygidium. Trilobite butt. It's very fun to say. Now, there's also another way to divide them into 3 sections. There's the one axial lobe right down the center, and then on either side, there's the mirror of the pleural lobe. So pleural lobe, axial lobe. Now, trilobites, if we go back to our timeline, they all lived before the age of the dinosaurs. So from about 500-ish million years ago, all the way up until about 250 million years ago. Then they all went extinct. So there were no trilobites around when there were dinosaurs. Now, trilobites, they lived in the ocean. So they liked crawling around. They were bottom feeders. Now, some of them, much like the roly-polies we just mentioned, and if you take a glance in this case, you'll see some that died this way. They could curl up into a ball to protect themselves. Some of them had an array of spikes that may have been defensive. Some of them also had sensory antennae lurking up, sticking right up. So they might have been sensory as they went around in the goop and the icky muck at the bottom of the ocean. Now, sea critters, in general, make up most of the fossil record. And that's because water is very good at burying things. Water carries sediment. Sediment settles on top of the sea critters, and that preserves them. Usually, with fossils, we find them preserved by stream beds, or oceans, or lakes, or lagoons, or what have you. So, these are one of my favorite groups of animals. What do they look like to you? Flowers. Some of them look like flowers. What else? Some of them look kind of squiddy.
Like seaweed.
Seaweed. So, go on, sorry.
I was going to almost say like fungusy or something.
Fungusy, yeah, I see that.
Words in it.
Now, some of you said seaweed, some of you said flowers. These are not extinct. Well, this whole group is not extinct. These individual species are, of course, long dead. These fossils, even though they're about 420-ish million years old, there is crinoids alive today. And in fact, some of them are called sea lilies. They look like flowers on the ocean floor, but as I said earlier, these are animals. So these are related to you and me. In fact, more closely related to you and me than arthropods like trilobites are. Now, these are relatives of other sea creatures. They might not look like it, but they're pretty close relatives well, I'll give you a hint. They have pentamorous or pentaradial symmetry. That means they have 5 points of symmetry. Who said that? You? Him? Yeah, they are related to sea stars. They are echinoderms. And so they're in the same big group of animals that include sea stars, brittle stars, sea cucumbers, sand dollars, all of these weird critters that have 5 rays of symmetry. And even though they're very bizarre, they're actually distantly related to vertebrates, but more closely related to vertebrates like we are than they are to arthropods or mollusks or any of those other invertebrate groups. So really cool critters. These are from Indiana, but we find them in Illinois. They have global distribution, and they're still alive today, as I said. Now, speaking of mollusks, what do these look like?
Snails.
Snails. They look like snail shells. They are mollusks like snails. And there are 3 big groups of mollusks. We have snails and slugs. Those are our gastropods. And that literally means stomach foot. So they're walking on their stomach, kind of. It's not that accurate, but it's accurate enough. Then we have bivalves, or sometimes called pelecypods. So those bivalves, 2 halves. So those are clams and mussels. Then we have cephalopods. And cephalopods are squids and octopus. Now you might not think squids and mussels and slugs are all part of the same group. You might not think that at first glance, but they actually are, and genetic studies confirm this. These, even though they look like snail shells, are that last group of mollusks we talked about. These are cephalopods. So coming out of that opening, there would not have been a snail. There would have been 2 eyes and maybe 10 or so tentacles. This was a squid and a half shell, much like the modern day nautilus, even though these are a different group of cephalopod, but same deal. Now, these lived all throughout, well, before the age of the dinosaurs and all throughout the Mesozoic, what is also called the age of dinosaurs. And so they came in a variety of shapes and sizes. Some were curled, some were straight, some had this trombone shape, which you can see right here. Others were in a helix pattern. Now, because they come in all these different sizes and shapes, and their suture patterns, do you see the leafy patterns all on that specimen? Those change from species to species. Each species has a unique pattern of sutures. So because of that, finding a cephalopod, if you don't know how old the rocks are that you're digging in, finding an ammonite like these is very good, because these are a good index fossil. Anyone want to hazard a guess at what index fossil means?
You can age it.
You can age it. Very good. It's how you find where you are in the stack of rocks. So it's pretty intuitive, but it's a basic rule of geology. Older layers of rocks are on the bottom. They're down below. And newer layers of rocks are up top. So these can help you determine where you are in time, where you are on our arm here. So these are super useful, not only because they're really interesting and dynamic organisms, living things, they're also good at helping situate us in time. Now, these are largely from the Cretaceous of South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. So at various periods in the Earth's history, there have been these epiric seas that go in and out of the continents over thousands and millions of years. Trilobites help trace this by looking at the different layers where they occur. And so we can see that near the end of the age of the dinosaurs, about 80 million years ago, there was this seaway that cut the North American continent in two, from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Alaska. And this started to recede at the end of the age of the dinosaurs. So our fossil record here in South Dakota goes from ammonites and sea critters to everybody's favorite. He's big, he's bad, he was the king of all dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now this is, as I said earlier, a replica of Stan. Stan is the second most complete T-Rex in the world, and he has one of the best skulls. And you can take a gander at this beautiful face right here. Now, we have just about every bone of Stan's skull preserved. But one of the reasons that his skull is so nice is kind of counterintuitive. You wouldn't expect it. All of these bones here, there's about 60 different bones in a T-Rex's head. All of these bones were found disarticulated. Disarticulated, what do you think that means? Not together. They were all separated. Now, if a T-Rex skull is found in one piece, what we would call articulated, that can oftentimes result in it being distorted because there's tons, literal tons of rock and dirt on top of it, and over time that's going to squish the bones in odd and interesting ways. Remember when we talked about taphonomy? Because Stan's skull bones were all there and they were all disarticulated, so they were kind of laying flat in the layer of rock. This meant that each piece could be slid exactly where it belongs to form a good picture of Stan, and that's why we call Stan the face of T-Rex. Stan has been replicated probably close to 75, maybe even 80 times now, and that's not just counting the individual skulls. That's full skeletons that museums have bought to put on display. If you've seen a T-Rex in a museum before, there's a good chance it was Stan.
Do you guys do that in-house?
Yes, we do.
They do everything.
Yep. There's a production facility out back where Black Hills Institute makes these replicas.
Is Stan in the Smithsonian?
Stan is not in the Smithsonian. Stan's new home is in Natural History Museum Abu Dhabi, which is opening in next year, I believe, 2026, I believe. But don't quote me on that. At any rate, Stan is this spectacular specimen. We've been able to learn a lot about T-Rex biology because of Stan, and because these specimens are distributed throughout the world. Many people, researchers, educators, the general public, they're all able to appreciate these bones and learn from them. And that's why making these replicas is so important. We actually have we have a real T-Rex bone right here you can come touch, and there are several touch bones throughout the museum. So you can come touch this. This is a real 66 million year old T-Rex bone. This is the metatarsal, one of the foot or ankle bones right there. You can kind of pinpoint where it would go on Stan. So you can come touch that.
Is he touching it? Is this supposed to be harmful?
Is touching it going to be harmful? No. And that's because the preparators and scientists at Black Hills Institute are very good at what they do. So this has been consolidated and prepared. So it's been glued, the cracks have been filled with putty, and it's gotten a final kind of a varnish on top of it that preserves it. And as you can see, it's embedded in this faux sandstone, this kind of faux rock right here. And that keeps it from getting yanked out. It also means it's very secure. You have a question.
Your next interview is about to start.
My next interview is about to start.
Yes, you have to say goodbye. Thank you to everyone.
Okay. Well, real quick, I will highlight one more thing for everyone. So, I want you to take a look at this bone right here, this U-shaped bone in between Stan's arms. You see it? Looks kind of like a boomerang. So that, you've touched a bone like this before. You've touched the equivalent of this bone on another animal.
Wishbone.
Say it louder.
Wishbone.
Wishbone. That is the equivalent of the wishbone on a turkey. It's the same bone. It's a furcula. And so this is one of a number of characters that unite dinosaurs and birds. So T-Rex had a wishbone like a bird. It had 3 toes like a chicken. T-Rex skin, we have a bronze replica over here you can touch. Even looks like the skin on a chicken's foot. And in fact, we find dinosaurs in China that have feathers preserved all over their bodies. Dinosaurs like Velociraptor and Dakotaraptor, right around the corner there, on their ulna. This is your ulna right here. Everybody show me your ulnus. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. So there are bumps and knobs on those dinosaurs' ulnas. And we see those in modern day birds. Those are muscle attachment sites for feathers. So birds are basically dinosaurs. When we look at all these different dinosaurs that existed, we see very birdy dinosaurs and very dinosaur-like birds. It is very hard to draw a clear line from where dinosaur ends and birds begin.
We saw turkeys on the way here. That's why they came up.
There you go.
Like, look, little dinosaurs.
Yeah, they are. That's okay. No.
They are.
No, that's exactly what we want. We want you guys to exercise your observational skills. We want you to make hypotheses, and want you to keep asking questions and making those connections. I apparently have been summoned away.
Hey, thanks for your time.
Hey, thank you all for your time. Yeah, safe travels. Enjoy the museum, and if I am able to come back, I will answer any questions you all have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.